You know, I've always wanted to say these words, and I feel like this is a really great opportunity for me to be able to say them, so I'm very excited. Everyone, we need to have a family meeting. As my family here in Shaarey Zedek, as my family and the Jewish people, there are a few things that we need to talk about. And I want to preface this by saying that this isn't a conversation that needs to be completely exhausted within 20 minutes, because that's not possible. Okay? This is the bits of conversations that need to happen, that need to be part of what we are speaking of every single day, every single week, as a community, as a Kehila Kedoshah, as a sacred and holy community. So I'm going to be really, really annoying, first of all, and I'm going to ask that anyone who would like to, even if you would not like to, if you are able, if you can move forward, please. I know that this is a very, very audacious thing to say in this space. And if you have not picked up a source sheet from the back, please grab one. It's audacious. Audacity is good. So come on forward. It's wonderful to be able to see so many people. For those of you who haven't moved yet, someday I'll get to you. You know, baby steps, one day at a time. Ever since the high holidays came to an end, I've been thinking a lot. I've had a lot of thoughts and a lot of conversations with people, and a lot of time to kind of meditate and have some introspection as well. Because a lot of the comments that I've heard since the holidays were very positive, very, very positive feedback about the high holidays. But I heard a lot of comments that I've heard ever since I got here, which are similar to the ideas of, there were a lot of people, but you should have seen how many there used to be. This whole place used to be filled. They used to put chairs on the stage. That's how many people used to come for the high holidays. And when we talk about other things, we talk about the religious school, and people tell me, do you know how many kids we used to have in our religious school? There are all these different moments where people tell me about the golden age of Shaarey Zedek and how many people used to be here. And I get it. This is a very historical place. This place has seen a lot. This place it's a fixture of Detroit, and it's a fixture of American Judaism. I understand that. I get it. But we have to start a painful conversation starting today. And that conversation involves us looking forward as well. Because as hard as it is to say, this year we didn't have chairs on the stage for the high holidays. And very likely next year we're not going to have chairs on the stage for the high holidays. But what we can do, what we can start doing as a community, is to start figuring out how we can make ourselves better every single day. How we can be the shul, the community, the Kehila Kedoshah, that every single day we're wondering what happens in this sacred space, and we're wondering what happens with our friends and our family, because we care so deeply about one another and about this community. So we're going to start a conversation today. We're going to start it. There are many, many more conversations to come. But if you can all take your source sheet that you have in front of you, we're going to begin with a quote that comes from Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. Now, Heschel taught at the Jewish Theological Seminary, my alma mater, but also came from Poland and escaped before the Holocaust and tried to live a life of chassidut, of meaningful Judaism, in kind of these decades of the decline of American Judaism. And he has a quote, and this quote comes from his book, God in Search of Man. And if you follow along with me, the quote says, "It is customary to blame secular science and anti-religious philosophy for the eclipse of religion in modern society. It would be more honest to blame religion for its own defeats." Religion declined not because it was refuted, but because it became irrelevant, dull, oppressive, insipid. When faith is completely replaced by creed, worship by discipline, love by habit, when the crisis of today is ignored because of the splendor of the past, when faith becomes an heirloom rather than a living fountain, when religion speaks only in the name of authority rather than with the voice of compassion, its message becomes meaningless. So I'm going to ask a tough question. You don't have to answer, but I think it would be nice if you did answer. If you could raise your hand for any time that you have not gone to shul, or you've hesitated about going to shul, or you've hesitated about going to a program at shul, because sometimes services, or what you were expecting, was that services could be dull, oppressive, or insipid. There are a lot of hands. I don't know if you looked around. There are a lot of hands. And I suspect that some people who didn't raise their hands also feel that way. And I'm here to say that we need to have this conversation because it's not a bad thing to be able to talk about what we want to improve on and what we think needs to change. And change is such a hard word to understand. And it's not something that I'm not pushing that we're going to change everything overnight, that we're not going to do radical changes, but that we start embracing a philosophy, a theology, a way of living that is mindful of who we are and where we're going. So if we can go to the very next paragraph. This comes from Martin Buber, whose book on Judaism, a very secular man who wrote a lot about religion, who wrote a lot about God, who wrote a lot about culture and tradition of Judaism, has this to say: "For God does not want to be believed in, to be debated and defended by us, but simply to be realized through us." And one more paragraph. This comes from, again, from Abraham Joshua Heschel in a conversation with Carl Stern from NBC. And I've quoted this from the Bima before. "Let us not mistake the nature of prayer, especially in Judaism. The purpose of prayer is not to make requests. The purpose of prayer is to praise, to sing, to chant. For the essence of prayer is a song, and man cannot live without a song. Prayer may not save us, but prayer may make us worthy of being saved." Now, if we think about those of us who have raised our hands, that there have been times when prayer has become oppressive, dull, insipid, maybe boring, maybe not meaningful, let me ask you a question. What is it at its core, what is it at its heart that brings you here every week? That makes you feel part of this community? And I'm not asking rhetorically, I have a microphone. If anyone, please.
Connection.
Connection. Beautiful.
Door to door.
Door to door, from generation to generation. Also important. Anyone else?
It's the only time I get to sing during the week.
It's the only time you get to sing during the week? Well, the essence of prayer is a song, right? It's a beautiful thing, exactly. And those things that seem so small, so little, that even if it's just the one time a week we get to sing, where we get to really sing, that's what prayer is about too. Exactly, to be able to really let our voices go. I think that's beautiful. I think that's special.
A sense of peace and joy.
A sense of peace and joy. A sense of peace and joy.
Mine's a little longer, but I feel nourished spiritually. I feel that I learn intellectually, and I feel that I get the opportunity to socialize with all my friends after services.
Great. Beautiful. This is the advantage to being up front, folks, by the way. Just saying.
Be humble and kind and friendly and care like a family. Be like a family.
Beautiful. Being kind and humble and being able to take care of one another and to feel like mishpacha, to feel like a family.
It allows me to disconnect.
It allows us to disconnect, gives us a different time, which interestingly is also connection, right? To disconnect from the rest of our life, from the emails, from whatever we have, and for one day, for 25 hours, to be able to connect in a very different way. Disconnecting from that part of the world and connecting to, again, our family.
Sometimes for me, it's like not necessarily the prayers, but something, let's say, the rabbi says, or a song, or even a person in the congregation that moves me, and all of a sudden everything comes together.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Anyone else? I'm getting my steps in.
Coming to services that when I leave, I feel like I'm a better person. It's like how to improve myself. What can I do to make myself a better person for myself and for the people around me, as well as a beautiful service that's very meaningful.
Beautiful. Thank you. Maybe one more, if anyone has one more.
To honor my father and my grandparents.
To honor your father and your grandparents. With all of these different comments, there is an understanding that what we are doing here each and every week is so much bigger, so much greater than sitting in chairs and saying words in Hebrew. It is so much greater. There is something at its ikar, at its essence, that what we do here when we come together to pray is really between us and God, but also us and one another. What we are trying to build here is a community that has been around for a long, long time, but continues to grow and continues to get stronger. And please God, it is our job as clergy, as leaders in this community, that when you think of Shaarey Zedek, when you think of your community, that you think about all of those things that we just mentioned, that you think about family, that you think about Dor Lador, that you think about singing, that you think about the meaning, the profundity, the idea of ethics that make you a better person. But that's hard. It's really hard. But I have to ask you a favor. And that favor is that you need to hold us accountable to that job. It is our job to make sure that this place is a place filled with meaning for you. And if there's any way that we can do anything to make that better, then we want to hear about that. It's important. When we have flags outside that say, "This is my shul," that's true. This is your shul. This shul belongs to you because this shul is not just a shul, it is a Kehila Kadosha. This is a sacred and holy community. When we come together, what we are trying to do is make family. And just as you now have a responsibility of telling us how we can do that to make that better, I'm giving you my promise now, and I'm speaking for my colleagues as well, that our promise to you is that we take what you say seriously, that we think about why we became members of clergy, that there's something about our Judaism that motivates us to be better people, that gives us a sense of spirituality, a sense of hope, a sense of love, a sense of kindness that we can't get anywhere else in the world. That there is something truly beautiful about who we are as Jews, about who we are as a community at Shaarey Zedek. Last night, Rabbi Starr talked really beautifully about the everyday miracles that we have in our lives, that we say blessings for all of these small things that exist in our lives. But what we need to remember going forward as a community is that the greatest miracle of all is us as a people. Time and time again, the world has told us that the Jews shouldn't be here, that there's no space for us, that there's no place for us in the world. And time again, we have been defiant against that message. And now looming before us is the biggest threat that we have ever experienced as a people. And that threat is not violence against us. It's not hatred of the Jewish people. It's apathy. It's apathy from within us. And it's time for us to start having this conversation because it's a difficult conversation to have. And it's so easy to blame other things and to say, because of soccer practice and because of our busy schedules, because of interfaith weddings, because of all of these different things, we continue to lose numbers and we lose numbers. And all of those things might be true. They all might be true. But at its core, we have a responsibility to make Judaism meaningful, beautiful, important, and something that continues to shape our lives and make us better. This week in Parashat Vayera, we read Akedat Yitzchak. We read about the binding of Isaac. And this story, on its face value, as its shots, as its very superficial value, has one message. That message is that this is a trial of Abraham. Abraham's faith is so great. If his faith is really as good as God thinks it is, would he be willing to even sacrifice his son? But the rabbis of the Talmud say that this isn't Abraham's trial at all. This trial belongs to Isaac. Because the rabbis place the ages of these two men. The age of Abraham, the rabbis say, anyone know how old Abraham is during Akedat Yitzchak? 100 years old, 100, and Isaac, 33. So the image that we have in our head of a strong man sacrificing a small child, the rabbis say is not true at all. The real image we have is a frail old man and a son who is willing to tether himself to be a sacrifice for the propagation of his father's tradition. Now, I'm not suggesting that we offer ourselves up for martyrdom. But if we look at this in a more of a metaphorical or symbolic way, what Isaac is doing is making a really sincere and powerful promise to his father and the generations to come. To literally tether himself to a tradition that one generation before was foreign. Today, I'm asking that we start having this conversation about what it means for us to tether ourselves to Judaism in a new and powerful way. That though we might not have as many seats in here as we once did, and even though we might have fewer children running around the shul and the religious school as we once did, what our mission right now is to make sure that the people that are here and the children that we have here who are coming up on the bima every single week, that their faces are always filled with the smiles and the joy and the happiness that is afforded by a life of living a Jewish life. That coming here is not something that people dread, but something that they look forward to. That coming to synagogue, that praying, that going to religious school, that participating in our social events, that helping build a sukkah, that coming to Shabbat dinner, that anything that has the name Shaarey Zedek on it is something that inspires pride, inspires joy, and most importantly, inspires a sense of family. So I wish I could leave us all with a great nafkamina, a great takeaway of saying, this is the big nugget of worth and meaning, and this is the answer, and this is the way we have to move moving forward. But I can't do that. What I can do is tell you that you have my word, my promise to every single one of you, that I will be the best rabbi I can be for you. That if you make an appointment to come to my office and talk to me about anything or everything, I will make time for you. That if there is a prayer that you want to say, if there is a melody that you long to sing, if there is something that you want to make happen, that we will hear you. And what I ask back is a promise to think about all of those things that make this place meaningful and to hold on to them and to spread that love and to spread that meaning wherever you can, to make sure that other people are better because you are better because of your life as a Jewish person. So from the bottom of my heart, Thank you. Thank you for being willing to tether yourselves. And again, we promise that we will do the same. So this conversation has just begun. We have much more to talk about. But as we move forward, I wish you a Shabbat of peace, of happiness, of joy, of celebration, of meaning, of profundity. And I look forward to us moving forward step by step. Shabbat Shalom.